In this video, we're gonna get this thing fully completed, put back together, and running in its complete form for the first time. All right, so I got a new gasket for the primary cover. This one's a little bit better. It actually has a metal liner on the inside and like the rubber seal between the two, where the two pieces join. This actually made it a whole lot easier to install because of that metal liner that's in there in the center. It actually holds the gasket in place. The one that I had before was actually made out of paper, and that one just kind of folded and didn't hold itself up when I was trying to put it on. It was a little bit more annoying. I mean, I guess if I had done it some different way, it might have been all right or acceptable. My issue was down here, which is where I had the leak. What I think happened is that the gasket ended up going around that nut or that bolt right there, and then created a small gap between the cover and the engine or the transmission in this area, and that's what caused the leak. Now the metal one, because it's so rigid, it actually keeps its position, it doesn't move. What I also like about it is it's just a little bit bigger than the case, so if I run my hand over it, I can feel if the gasket is there or not. So that made it a lot easier to install and work with. I've also gone ahead and adjusted the pedals. I think it's okay here. I'm not 100% sure. There's a lot of leverage here and a lot of movement, so I guess I'll really just find out once I'm actually riding it and down the road. It's all Loctited in place, so I'll see how that goes. Again, I'm just not 100% sure about all this. I'm not even sure if I really like it, but for now I'll keep it because it's what I got. Oh yeah, before I forget, to take these guys off, all you need is just a 1/2-inch ratchet. There's really nothing special. It fits actually right in there perfectly. What happens is that you get stuff like that. It gets all beat up and worn out, and it makes it more difficult to take off. I can't use this anymore with that because this side is actually kind of just chewed out. Anyway, not sure exactly if that's the case, that somebody else used something they shouldn't have or what. But anyway, I'm stuck with that. So I'm now going to move on to installing the exhaust. Now, I couldn't get the studs. For some reason, they're back order and they don't have any. It seems like they've been running out for a little while, and that's why they couldn't get any. Either way, he suggested that I just throw in some 5/16 coarse threads in there, and that's what I'm going to do. I have some nuts and some all thread, and that's what I'll put in. I'll also add just a little bit of anti-seize in there, so that way they don't get stuck in there. So I'm actually just going to go ahead, cut those, and get the nuts and stuff for it, and then set up the whole exhaust. All right, got the new 5/16 coarse thread studs installed. I mean, I think I mentioned it before. I'm not a fan of doing this. I like to use the manufacturer or stock type of equipment, just because you know, if they made it that way, then that's what they wanted. As you can tell, the little brown stuff that's sticking out there, I just used some copper anti-seize and made sure that I could get those out a little bit later. Now I noticed why this one had just the 5/16 all thread stuck in there. It seems like they may have removed the exhaust and then broke the original stud on the inside. I think it's not a whole lot more. I mean, it's max a 1/2 inch, but probably more like a 1/4. I'll have to get in there at some point whenever I take this whole bike apart and then try and get that out. But for now, all thread, it's going to be okay. Next step is trying to get all this stuff back on there. I did take it apart to try and, you know, clean it as much as I could. There was a lot of rust on there. It's not all gone, but at this point, it doesn't really matter. It's not a show bike. And as you can tell, I got some new gasket rings and whatnot, and I'll install those at the same time. Well, it's been a couple days, actually maybe even a week, since I last worked on the Sportster. Basically, I did a few things. And this is where I'm at right now. So why don't I just start with this, since it's pretty obvious. I popped the gas tank on. The only thing I'm missing is the hose from the petcock to the carburetor. Now, I had a different petcock, but it was in the wrong position. It basically, the output was going down. Actually, you know what? Let me get it and I'll show you. So this one in my hand is the one that I actually wanted to install, but as you can see, it's pointing down and it was touching the top of the carb. It basically has to be installed this way, so that way you can operate it. And it was just basically becoming a pain, and I could see that I wasn't going to be able to put the hose on there and properly get it to sit. Now, I tried to get the one that is exactly like this, but in this pattern right here. The only thing, it was double the price of this one. I was like, no way am I paying that kind of money. So I got your generic cheap chrome one that fit on this tank. I tightened it up, which actually was kind of a bit of a pain because it's double threaded. They kind of go in opposite directions, and then they squeeze together as you tighten it, which is kind of a nice idea, but at the same time I actually had a hard time just tightening it completely and getting it the way I wanted it. But either way, it's on there now. Just know that when you get something like this, that you might have to fiddle around with that. So I have a spare petcock. Now this color is just some Krylon paint. I honestly tried painting this with like a proper like 2K style, I guess you could call it, where it's base coat, clear coat. I don't know what the deal was, but it would not clear coat very nicely. It would always have some kind of fog in it. I'm not sure if the temperature was the issue or if it was just like the extreme high humidity that we were having back in like June, July of last year. This is not the original tank. This is an aftermarket tank. It's about 3 gallons, like 2.9 gallons, something like that. And it looks nice. It looks stock. It's a little bit bigger than the stock version, if I'm not mistaken. Also got a new cap. This is a self-venting, and it clicks when you got it at the right tension. And what I really liked about this tank is that it's bolted in. I didn't have to do anything fancy. It just bolted in and fit perfectly. Now, I did chip it in a couple of spots right here and up here. But I'm at the point where pretty much this thing is taking way too long, so I don't care. So like I said, I just need to get the fuel line for that, and then I'll be done with that. As you can tell, I have the cover on the air filter. If I didn't mention it before, this is I believe an Arlen Ness Big Sucker. It came with the bike. I didn't actually buy this. The only thing I bought was this brass cover. So as you can tell, the color combination I'm going for is red, black, and brass. I really like the color of brass. It's not super shiny when it's brushed, and it just looks really cool. I really like that. That's why I wanted the brass petcock. But anyway, it's on there. It's secure. It's been Loctited, and I don't want to lose that. It's a very expensive piece, honestly. It's ridiculous. And now onto the part that actually caused me the most amount of grief. I got the bottom or front exhaust muffler, if you will, on there, and that was fine. I didn't have any issues there. But this back one, goodness gracious, what a pain in the butt. So I guess this is maybe a custom thing, or maybe it's a me thing, I don't know. So the first issue I had is that the brake line was getting in the way of the actual position of the exhaust. I'm actually in the process of getting a new, what is it called? The banjo, what do you call it? The part, not the bolt, but the other part. Anyways, part of the banjo system of the brakes. So that's on order. So I have to just replace that. I did reroute the brake line because before it was coming up here, and even stock, it comes up here, but it's a hard line, and it has a bunch of shapes just to get it to fit in there, and then it sweeps to the other side. So I rerouted the line and the light switch, and that's okay now. The main reason that I was having problems with this exhaust was because there's this bracket that goes here, this one right here, and it was kind of pushed in. So what ended up happening is that it was riding a little bit on the rear passenger foot peg, which I have removed, and it was also pretty close to the swing arm, which I really didn't like. So now it's kicked out. I think it might be kicked out a little bit too much, but at this point, I'm just in a don't give an F position, and let's get this thing up and running. As for the wiring mess, I sort of cleaned it up. I changed the positions of the ground. I used to have them tucked back here, where it's the ground for the ignition computer, if you want to call it that. And I didn't really like it, just in case there was some crosstalk or something like that. So I just placed everything here. These are just grounds. I'm not overly worried, and it's stuck there. I tested it. Everything seems to work fine. Yep, I did get a new blinker control module, and this now fully functions. Everything it works, the 4 ways, left, right, you name it. It's good. And as you can tell, I also installed this kind of chrome piece. I was looking for a brass piece, but they don't make them. I'm not sure if I'm going to paint it or do something else with it. Maybe even have it plated. So this side seems to be okay. The wires, like I said, have been cleaned up a little bit, mostly just to get them out of the way. I do have a seat. I'm going to bring that out later once everything else is good and said and done. And I'm actually even going to go through the process of getting it to run again, just to make sure that everything is good. I have yet to put fuel in here, which will allow me to test the petcock to make sure that that's not leaking, and then basically fill the carb that way. And then I'll just put enough gas in there to make this run a little bit. And when I bring it to the shop to have a good look over, I'll give them enough gas just to make sure that once the shop tests it out, then they have enough to do whatever they need to do without running out and having to add some, or whatever the case may be. I don't think they'll need that much, but you never know. So like I mentioned, fuel hose and the banjo nut bolt thingy, whatever, are the two pieces that I'm missing, and then I'll get the seat put on. So I'll bring it back once I have all those things set up. All right, picked up some 5/16 hose and some clamps. I got that installed. I didn't yet put any fuel in here because I'm just not quite ready to get there, but it's installed, connected, real good. I got the banjo for the brake. It actually gave me a little bit of problem, not the banjo itself, but I tried to, you know, be a little bit cheap, and I didn't get the washers, the crush washers that are in there, and it leaked a little bit, and so I had to replace them. But I had installed the exhaust on before even getting this banjo, thinking, I'll be fine, not really looking at what was right in front of me. But you can't access that screw that's right there to add the fluid, the brake fluid that's in here to fill the reservoir. The reason why I had to do that, obviously, is because I disconnected the hose and then I had to rebleed the brakes. Everything's fine now, but I ended up having to take this whole thing off again. Honestly, I think I've probably taken off this exhaust a dozen times, and at least worked on this brake stuff at least 3 or 4 times just to try and get it right. I'm not sure if it's just a design thing, if it's a me thing, or if it's just that this bike is not happy, if I can put it that way. But anyway, it's on. Everything seems to work, so I'm going to leave it there. So I got this kind of bird's nest of wires sort of covered up. I mean, I just taped everything up so that way it wouldn't fall apart. At first I was going to try and cover everything up that had basically any non-red or black wire that would be extremely visible. But then I realized that the seat really sits on top of here, so I'm not going to be overly worried about it. I'm literally just going to shove everything in here. And when I take this bike apart later on in the future, I will be redoing all of this. It really is a mess, and I'm not happy with it. But I literally just want to get this bike on the road, and I'm at the point where it just doesn't bleeping matter. So it's staying that way. All right, I've been trying to put on the seat for, I don't know, 15 minutes now. The issue ended up being that these holes that were drilled in for holding the seat originally ended up stripping out. It's drilled into the actual frame of the bike. Personally, guys, here's my tip, pro tip, whatever you want to call it. Don't do that. Don't bleeping do that. It's really a pain in the butt to deal with this. There's not enough metal here to do anything with it if you're going to thread it. Weld a tab, something, a bung, I don't know, something to make it stronger. I'm in a position right now where, like I've been saying a few times now, it just doesn't matter. I am going to use it for the time being, and when I strip this bike down, I'm going to pretty much redo all of this up here and just do something else with it. I'll figure something else out, but this guys does not work. Don't do this. All right, finally got the seat on. Like I said, don't do this. This bracket wasn't made by me, nor were these holes created by me. This is just whatever somebody else did. So I kind of just went with it. This is the seat that it came with. This is built to grind. It's really good leather work. I have no issue with that. This isn't my style. I like it plain and simple, no design. So I may later change that. I'm not sure yet. I had a little mishap here where I got it hooked on something, and one of these little threads or stitching broke, and then I kind of had to fix it. The other thing with this too is it's very, very stiff. It's using like camping foam or something like that, and it makes it really stiff. But for now, it is what it is. Well, it wasn't leaking before, but it is now. So I'm gonna have to go back and tighten that up and see if that resolves the issue. I was pretty happy with that. I did fill it with gas, obviously, and then the first second I started putting the spout into the filler, boom, gas just went all over the place. I was so angry. And then here the handlebar hit, and now the paint is kind of coming up because, well, the gas got in there and it just got a little bit worse. Anyway, I'm at the end of my rope with this. Let me fix that fuel leak. All right, did whatever I could to try and get that to be solid. It's in a bit of a weird position, but honestly, it's not leaking anymore. It ended up just being the hose clamp wasn't tight enough. I have to say, I'm not a big fan of these hose clamps, just because sometimes what they end up doing is they rip into the rubber hose, but got no choice at this point. All right, let's go ahead and start it up for the first time in its complete form. Well, I don't know what to say, man. I've been working on this thing for a couple of years now. Well, guys, I said it before, I have been, oh, that's hot. I've been working on this thing for 2 years, and it's been a good frustration, a good lesson in frustration. But I'm at the point where it's complete, it's running, doesn't seem to be leaking at this point. Actually, let me turn this off. Still has a few like dumb things, but honestly, I'm not even going to stress about it at this point. This is where I'm going to bring it to a shop just to have somebody look at it and make sure that everything is good. Again, I've said it before, I'm not a pro. I do this as a hobby. I do this for fun. I like doing things like this for myself. And I think you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. So, man, just do it. But it's such a relief to get to this stage. I even went for a little tiny spin in my yard here. It felt good. The tires need some air, but other than that, it doesn't matter. It is a relief. I don't know if I can express it in words. Maybe my face is showing it. I have no idea, but it is the culmination of 2 years of working on something to be able to drive it in my yard. Just that alone feels monumental, and I don't even know how to express it in words. It is just such a solid, good point. Feels good. You know, unless there's an issue with the engine, I I will be happy with whatever comes up, providing that, like I said, it's not massively major. I got to do an oil change and maybe just do a little nut and bolt check just to make sure everything is okay. But I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to probably come back to the next video on this, and I'll be bringing it to the shop. So I just want to say thanks for watching, and take it easy.